And you know you can't trust this president do what's right for this country. You can trust he will do what's right for Donald Trump. He'll do it now. He's done it before. He'll do it for the next several months. He'll do it in the election if he's allowed to. This is why, if you find him guilty, you must find that he should be removed. Because right matters. Because right matters. And the truth matters. Otherwise, we are lost.
And everywhere you look, of course, there's the specter of corrupt intent in everything the president does. A self-serving desire to put his political future above anything else, even in the middle of a pandemic that's killing tens of thousands of our fellow Americans. Today, for instance, we learned the president just owes tens of millions of dollars to the Bank of China, and that the loan is due in the middle of what could be Trump's second term, which, who knows? I genuinely don't know. It might or might not explain why the president praised China and its leaders at least 15 times as the virus was spreading, even though he wants to memory hole that now. You never know. One of the nation's leading vaccine experts, who was just demoted, we were just talking about in the last block, told us he had to resist a push to, quote, fund potentially dangerous drugs, listen to this, promoted by those with political connections. The president was pushing a drug with unknown side effects, apparently because people around him would profit, at least in part, just like the president's associates running around Ukraine trying to dislodge ambassadors and score lucrative business deals, right? It's the same thing. And there's so much more. We were warned. Democrats in Congress impeached President Trump, and 52 out of 53 Republican senators voted to keep him there. And now here we are again.
We absolutely need to significantly ramp up not only the number of tests, but the capacity to actually perform them. I am not overly confident right now at all that we have what it takes to do that. We're getting better and better at it as the weeks go by, but we are not in a situation where we say we're exactly where we want to be with regard to testing.
As you know, and as I've said many times, we're very advanced in testing. Other countries are calling us to find out what are we doing. We've done more testing than every other nation combined. And that's a big statement.
Do you agree with Dr. Fauci that we're just not there yet?
No, I don't agree with him on that. No, I think we're doing a great job in testing. I don't agree. If you said that, I don't agree with him.
How this all played out as the president undermined his top medical experts on stage. Once again, they're being forced to push back hard against President Trump's latest suggestions for treating the coronavirus, one of which included, stay with me here, injecting people with disinfectant. The president's ideas, which were rejected by experts in the briefing room with him, came after a Homeland Security official presented research that found disinfectants, heat and humidity killed the virus on surfaces and in the air.
So supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting.
We'll get the right folks who could.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number in the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. A lot of people have been talking about summer. Maybe this is one of the reasons. I once mentioned that maybe it does go away with heat and light. and people didn't like that statement very much. The fake news didn't like it at all, and I just threw it out as a suggestion, but it seems like that's the case.
It would be irresponsible for us to say that we feel that the summer is just going to totally kill the virus, and that if it's a free-for-all and that people ignore those guides. That is not the case.
The president mentioned the idea of cleaners, the bleach and isopropyl alcohol you mentioned. There's no scenario that could be injected into a person, is there?
No, I'm here to talk about the findings that we had in the study. We don't do that within that lab, our labs. So.
I would like you to speak to the medical doctors to see if there's any way that you can apply light and heat to cure. You know, that if you could, and maybe you can, maybe you can't. Again, I say maybe you can, maybe you can't. I'm not a doctor, but I'm like a person that has a good, you know what.
You're the president.
Deborah, have you ever heard of that? The heat and the light relative to certain viruses, yes, but relative to this virus?
Not as a treatment. I mean, certainly fever is a good thing when you have a fever. It helps your body respond. But not as, I've not seen heat or light.
I think it's a great thing to look at. I mean, you know, okay.
Respectfully, sir, you're the president, and people tuning into these briefings, they want to get information and guidance and want to know what to do. They're not looking for rumors.
I'm the president, and you're fake news. And you know what I'll say to you? I'll say very nicely, I know you well. I know you well, because I know the guy. I see what he writes. He's a total faker. So are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? It's just a suggestion from a brilliant lab by a very, very smart, perhaps brilliant man. He's talking about sun, he's talking about heat, and you see the numbers. So that's it. That's all I have. I'm just here to present talent. I'm here to present ideas, because we want ideas to get rid of this thing. And if heat is good, and if sunlight is good, that's a great thing as far as I'm concerned.
I guess if you could collapse the past 3.5 years of madness into one clip,
that would be it.
That might be the clip.
That's
where
why Fox News or Sean Hannity went crazy on you last night. Probably couldn't even bring himself to start with that.
Well,
he's
been doing it for years. He's got this really strange obsession, and I hope for his sake he gets past it.
But they had to fill time with something beyond that ridiculous claim by the president that he wasted everybody's time with. And you saw Dr. Birx. Ron Fournier had the greatest tweet: "Watch her soul slowly die."
I have nothing but respect.
She was so disgusted with him.
Yeah, Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci, they're hanging in there to try to save lives. I knew growing up.
As Drs. Fauci and Birx tell us, it's going to come back in the fall. As the director of the CDC says, the winter is going to be bad when you have the confluence of coronavirus with the flu. That's the painful reality a lot of doctors, a lot of families, a lot of people in this country are coming to terms with. And I think that's probably why the president, in his way, is trying to project some miracle. He's trying to say, well, maybe it's hydroxychloroquine that's going to come in and save the day and get us through this and deliver on what he called a month or so ago, the miracle, that it will miraculously just go away. And now he's up there on the stage. His latest miracle cure that he's musing about, we should point out again, is dangerous and incorrect, is that perhaps you could inject disinfectant or somehow get light or UV rays into the body to make it go away. This is all part of his idea that there's going to be a miracle that's going to wipe out the reality that we're all confronted with right now.
Right, and there's not going to be a miracle. This is a long slog. You talked about the second inning of a 9-inning game. Maybe we're in the second inning. Maybe we're not even there yet. I mean, this is, look, the president's performance yesterday was dangerous and imbecilic. It was just absolutely stunning. You talk about having him not being a doctor or having little command of the science. My goodness, injecting disinfectant into the human body. Just the notion. It just beggars the imagination how that would occur to a grown man who's managed to survive this long in the world and do fairly well for himself and become president of the United States. And he would even entertain that idea is just stunning. The column I wrote today was really more about patience than anything else. We have to be patient. This is a step-by-step process, and if we look for some sort of miracle that it'll just go away and we can go about our business, that's going to kill a lot of people. A lot of people are going to die. It's going to come back. It's going to come back worse. We have to be patient and disciplined. And Donald Trump, unfortunately, to our disaster, is anything but patient.
Yeah, to your point, Gene, these are the headlines from UK papers. I mean, we could go around the world. Dangerous, bizarre, insane, horror. Those are the headlines in response to President Trump's really unhinged press conference, briefing, whatever you want to call it, yesterday. It was really difficult to watch, especially when he put his top scientists in that terrible position. The president yesterday also said that researchers are close to producing a vaccine for COVID-19.
A lot of trials are going on. We have a lot of great, brilliant minds working on this, both from the standpoint of a vaccine and therapeutics. We must be careful in all conditions, but we will get this done. We're very close to a vaccine. Unfortunately, we're not very close to testing, because when the testing starts, it takes a period of time, but we'll get it done.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in the East. On the heels of an astonishing 22 hours of scrambling across the public and private sectors to protect the American people from the president, and the president's words, to be specific. Extraordinary statements pouring in from state officials to medical experts to cleaning supply companies, asking people to ignore the president, his astonishing musings on unproven and potentially fatal imagined treatments for coronavirus, namely the suggestion that people consume or inject disinfectant chemicals to, quote, clean their bodies. From the makers of Lysol, quote, "We must be clear that under no circumstance should our disinfectant products be administered into the human body through injection, ingestion, or any other route." From officials in Washington state, quote, "Please don't eat Tide Pods or inject yourself with any kind of disinfectant. If you do need help with COVID-19 issues, we have lots of resources. Just don't make a bad situation worse." A massive chorus of healthcare professionals calling the very idea, quote, "irresponsible and dangerous." One public health official warning point blank in an interview with the Washington Post, quote, "My concern is that people will die." That is how the truth tellers are fighting back against the most recent public spitballing session from the president on his imaginary remedies for coronavirus. Comments we're going to play you for this reason only, for you to see the real-time reaction of Dr. Deborah Birx, whose face in this clip says it all.
And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
It's an unenviable position, to say the least, for Dr. Deborah Birx, who prior to this tour spent her career on the forefront of some of the most significant public health crises of our time. She's now been reduced to listening to a president banter about sunlight and bleach. In a bill signing today, Trump tried to claim that his suggestion was sarcastic. It's galling spin. Even his communications department didn't attempt sarcasm as an excuse in any of the statements they've put out. We heard it for ourselves, though. It wasn't sarcastic, and it wasn't his only idea. Trump also suggested that Dr. Birx and the rest of the officials unlucky enough to be in close proximity to TV cameras try it, that they try transmitting UV light inside the body. I think his words were, "Take a look at it." It's a treatment idea that's been embraced by conspiracy theorists, but roundly rejected by the scientific mainstream. And when confronted with the possibility that armchair medical guidance like that could pose risk to people looking for advice, the president defended his comments forcefully.
Respectfully, sir, you're the president, and people tuning into these briefings, they want to get information and guidance and want to know what to do. They're not looking for rumors.
I'm the president, and you're fake news. And you know what I'll say to you? I'll say very nicely, I know you well. I know you well, because I know the guy. I see what he writes. He's a total faker. So are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? It's just a suggestion from a brilliant lab by a very, very smart, perhaps brilliant man. He's talking about sun, he's talking about heat, and you see the numbers. So that's it. That's all I have. I'm just here to present talent. I'm here to present ideas because we want ideas to get rid of this thing. And if heat is good and if sunlight is good, that's a great thing as far as I'm concerned.
To be really, really clear, the scientist was talking about sunlight, heat, and cleaners on counters, not in the body. But as the president now tries to downplay his latest run at scientific inquiry, it's worth noting that the last unproven treatment that he publicly and repeatedly pushed, cheered, and promoted, hydroxychloroquine, now comes with an FDA warning that it should not be used outside hospitals and clinical trials because of potentially serious side effects.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. We are still, on this Friday, in the midst of one of the worst national disasters since the Second World War, probably. And from the beginning, the president has wanted to wish it away. He's wanted to tell us that we have it totally under control, as he said in January, that within a couple of days, the case count is going to be down to close to zero, as he claimed in February. He tried happy talk and spin. He pretended it was not happening. And when none of that worked and the government failed to protect us with inadequate testing, he turned his attention to finding some magic pill, some bolt from the blue cure that can make everything go away, that would make the economy and the stock market come back, that would get Donald Trump reelected. And so he seized on some genuinely promising, though very limited initial signs about this malaria drug, and day and night, he and the folks on Trump TV flogged it and pushed it.
A drug called chloroquine, and some people would add to it hydroxychloroquine. The nice part is it's been around for a long time, so we know that if things don't go as planned, it's not going to kill anybody.
If I had the choice, I would use it for me, and I'm only speaking for me. In a lot of ways, hydroxychloroquine is the ideal medicine.
At this point, it's come across as pretty much of a game changer.
I say it. What do you have to lose? I'll say it again. What do you have to lose? Take it. I really think they should take it.
Watching people in the media talk down a potentially life-saving medicine because a politician they don't like has endorsed it is probably the most shameful thing I, as someone who's done this for 29 years, have ever seen.
And just recently, a friend of mine told me he got better because of the use of that drug. What do you have to lose? They've been taking it for 40 years for malaria. The word is out. You know, the people get it. These people don't get it, the media, but the people get it.
We now know this was not just idle speculation. It wasn't just hype. Behind the scenes, the Trump administration was trying to force the drug on Americans in contravention of scientific advice. Just days ago, they ousted the doctor leading the agency involved in developing a vaccine in the midst of a pandemic, the worst in 100 years, Dr. Rick Bright, who says that part of the reason that he was ousted, that he was removed from his post in the midst of this pandemic, is because he, quote, resisted efforts to provide an unproven drug, hydroxychloroquine, on demand to the American public, on demand. Well, now we have the emails obtained by Vanity Fair showing the Trump administration, quote, really wanted to flood New York and New Jersey with a drug that had not been sufficiently tested for treatment of coronavirus. In fact, today, the FDA is cautioning against using that drug outside of the hospital setting, outside of a clinical trial, due to the risk of heart rhythm problems. And researchers have cut short a study of the drug, citing a high risk of death in the people who are taking it. Nearly 24 died after taking doses daily. Now, the evidence here is mixed, but that's why it needs to be studied. And now, Trump TV's Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity, you saw them all there on tape, are trying to moonwalk away from the notion they were pushing this drug in the first place. But here's the thing. The president has not given up on the idea of some magical solution because he is incapable of thinking about this as a long-term battle that requires strategy and care and competence and expertise. Nope. He still wants the magic bullet to save him and his reelection. So here he is yesterday, just brainstorming on how to cure the coronavirus. And as you watch this, please keep your eyes on Dr. Deborah Birx, who had been up until now a long-respected public health official who decided to mortgage her entire reputation on behalf of this man.
Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number in the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that.
It's that deep breath she takes there when he says injection. An injection inside, almost a cleaning. Test that too. Can you guys run that down for me? Yes, as everyone has noted in the last 24 hours, that's insane. It sounds insane. But he's the president. That's the guy running the country. The people listen. The Maryland Emergency Management Agency said it received several calls regarding questions about disinfectant use in COVID-19. More than 100, in fact. And companies have had to warn people not to drink or inject bleach and other disinfectants. Lysol's parent company put out a statement, quote, "Due to recent speculation and social media activity, we must be clear that under no circumstance should our disinfectant products be administered into the human body through injection, ingestion, or any other route." Chlorox also put out a statement warning people not to put its products into their bodies. And there were also warnings from the EPA and the CDC and the Surgeon General, who implored people to please always talk to your health provider first before administering any treatment medication to yourself or a loved one. I should tell you that just today, Trump lied and said his initial comment was sarcastic, even though that's obviously not true because we all just saw the video there. And then he went ahead after lying and saying it was sarcastic and basically, like, once again said what he said yesterday. Like, maybe we check it out. I'm not a doctor, but, run it down. This is all happening on a day when the death toll from this virus has reached 51,000. More than 51,000 Americans have died from it. He said the cases were going down to 0 in February. We're heading towards 1 million cases. We're on our way to that. 26 million people have lost their jobs. And day after day after day, we're seeing there's no real plan. There's no plan or solutions coming from the White House. Instead, there is, every night, carried on this network and others, a 2-hour pathological narcissistic propaganda show in which the president feels some fleeting sense of satisfaction because people are watching him. And then he goes back to watching more. Do you remember when the president was impeached earlier this year? Just the third time in American history? That impeachment trial ended back in the beginning of February, less than 3 months ago, if you can believe it. It sure feels like another lifetime. But here's the thing. If you go back and you look at what the president was impeached for, all of the dangerous and vicious tendencies, like putting his own personal political interest above the national public interest and his fundamental inability to distinguish between the two, running roughshod over career civil servants, retaliation against whistleblowers, all the self-serving corruption, all of that is what we are seeing on deadly display right now, day after day. Because you cannot trust him to do what is right. That is what impeachment manager Adam Schiff warned us about back in January.